All right, guys, still a little fresh off of my Total Gym GTS review. If you guys haven't seen it, I'll link it above here on the screen, but I've been getting a lot of questions already since that time. People asking me what are the big differences, at least that I'm noticing, between these commercial grade units and the Total Gym home consumer-based models. And so for the sake of this video, I'm really gonna highlight those differences, and I'm gonna use my Total Gym Fit, which has generally been my go-to Total Gym to recommend to most people for a number of reasons, as my comparison. Now, I don't wanna make this super long because I easily could, so I'm gonna jump right into it here in a second. I'll put timestamps down below if you're gonna jump to a certain section. If you guys see anything in this video that you guys like and wanna help support me in the channel, I will link everything featured in this video down below in the description box. First thing I wanna get into, which is really kind of an updated source, because I did acknowledge this on my initial Total Gym GTS review. Now that I've had more time to play around with this commercial grade Total Gym and then comparing it to a home grade unit, especially this Fit, which is, again, quote unquote, kind of like the top of the line Total Gym home unit that's out there. It's still a decent amount of coin if you were paying full price for this. The Total Gym GTS, these commercial grade models, really dwarf these baseline home consumer units, especially this Fit. And I said at the time, I often recommended, Total Gym Fit definitely does feel like an upgrade, a more solid machine compared to like the other lower grade, cheaper models, the Apex and stuff like that. But now when you're going jumping back and forth, and now I had time with this, you really do notice that this Total Gym Fit just feels like a substantially smaller experience. It just feels like the whole thing was kind of shrunken down. You can see I'm almost at full incline. This thing's only at half incline capabilities. But just the feel, I mean, even though this thing I always said was pretty solid machine, you really notice the difference in this. And I don't wanna say it feels like a cheaper machine, but I guess it is a cheaper machine. You definitely just notice it. So you kind of get spoiled the more you play around and know what these higher end levels are like. And then when you jump back down to these smaller units. This GTS does come with a lot of great attachments, but probably the one that really surprised me the most is this adjustable squat stand on this GTS. I was a little concerned a little bit because I didn't really know it even did adjust, but there's a little lever in the back that goes up and down. This thing opens up so many versatile doors for not just things with legs, but also upper body exercises. Because you guys know on my channel, I do a lot of stuff where I might be down here pressing through the squat stand. This is the Total Gym squat stand. As far as you can say, surface area, a little longer on the top, but not as wide. And the fact that you can adjust this up and down, you guys can also take this thing off if you want to and do some unique things there. But this adjustable squat stand, honestly, is probably one of the best things. Not to mention, this thing can handle a lot more force. I'll get into some like plyometric jumps a little bit later, but this thing can handle some force. It actually hasn't bent. It has, impressively kind of withstood a lot of high weight and tension I placed upon it. But I just feel like it's a matter of time this thing eventually would wear, or something down here would kind of wear. So it's nice to know that this thing can handle a lot of forward pressure. Not to mention, there's always like some slight give to this too. But biggest thing for me, that's probably the attachments that's kind of blown me out of the water so far, I like the most, I'm using the most, is this adjustable squat stand. Something else that actually really surprised me that I probably am using a lot, it's hard to say right now if this is like one of my favorite features, but it's definitely up there, is this little kind of middle central area in the tower where you can clip on various settings. Now, you could do a variety of things with like the Fit and a lot of base model Total Gyms with like the pulley attachment. I didn't use it that much. I've certainly done some things with pulleys and middle grip attachments for pulling things. I do know I've really stress tested this thing, gone beyond what the Total Gym, this Total Gym Fit's really capable of. I'm impressed by that tower strength because I've done things like heavy band pulls. I've done like closed chain pull-ups on that tower. I know you're not supposed to, it's not really stress tested for that. This one I feel a lot more confident on. You guys are gonna see some pictures of me utilizing my ISOFlow, this T2 ISO trainer, which I haven't even reviewed yet, but I'm just loving this middle attachment. I'm leaving this kind of middle area kind of chained up with some chains. I'll probably throw on some straps on there, but this is probably one of the most useful and probably one of the biggest features that if I lost this, I'd really miss out on. And I don't know for sure, I probably should ask them about it, but I kind of put a lot of trust on this tower, being that it is so substantial and heavy duty. But even this, I'm not really sure if it's really weighted for what I'm doing, but I noticed just in the way I'm kind of pulling it, it's handling the pressure like a beast. All right, the next thing I like a lot that I hope Total Gym includes on future home gym models that they're gonna make is this kind of bracing bar attachment you can kind of add to the bottom of the Glideboard to help basically connect you to the machine for things like heavy leg presses or just even a variety of things if you wanna hold on from the bottom. I think that's a really cool function because as you guys know, I've probably made more than 5+ videos, a variety of ways that I've kind of allowed myself to lock myself in the machine for things like legs. Of course, you can use the weight bar attachment if you got it for like a Fit or some other model to hold on. But even for this, it kind of depends on how tall you are with your legs and if that's comfortable. I've used things like suspension trainers to lock me in. So that's kind of a definitely a useful and needed function. However, I will say I do use this function of the weight bar attachment for things 9 times out of 10, not even for weights. So just put my feet up on here to brace my feet, maybe sideways if I'm doing like cable rotations to keep myself kind of locked in the machine. So it is a useful feature if you take the weight bar off. I will say, if you guys know, leave your weight bar in, you know you will likely bang your shins up many times, which has happened to me very often. But aside from that, that's probably the next segue I'll get into, which is where the weight bar is located on the fit versus on these GTS models. Because in the Total Gym GTS, the weight bar actually attaches up top, and this thing is good and bad for some things. And I will just say this, no weight bar attachment I think is gonna be perfect. There's always gonna be some issues. And I think some of you guys alluded to the fact, we'll get into some of the issues you guys address in the comment section. But one thing I'm noticing, I don't know if it's my weight bar, but if I load this thing with weight, I notice it likes to kind of fly off really easily. So if I can't just unilaterally load one side at a time, I have to make sure I'm really bracing one time, because there's weight on here, it'll just kind of pull it right off. Now again, I'm not sure if this metal has bent or what, I don't think it has. But aside from that, I think it's totally fine. Now the biggest issue you guys have with this thing that you guys don't like, it took me a second to see what you guys meant by it, but I certainly did recognize it when I was playing around with it. I just get to it in the review, was the fact that if you're doing things like pull-ups, and if you got weight in the bar, you basically can't do weighted pull-ups, because unless I guess if you had a small diameter plate, it would be okay, but you really can't do it without your arms kind of getting in the way. Now there are a couple of workarounds. One thing I would just say for me personally, I honestly don't really weight my pull-ups that much. I used to. I think I get by just fine at the incline setting, especially with this and how heavy it is, because if you go heavy enough with the weight bar attachment, in my opinion, I'm not sure what you guys are doing, but I would need the grip mat, which I've shown up before in other videos, putting a grip mat on the Total Gym. That's the only way I can really stay connected doing a pull-up without sliding off the Glideboard. But aside from that, if you actually did want to attach resistance bands, which as always, I will say this, you gotta do this at your own risk. I will show you at the bottom of the machine, there's a clip here of how I would attach resistance bands. I actually think it's much easier. I'm sure there's more than one way of doing it, but if I'm gonna attach resistance bands, a loop style band, this seems to be the easiest way to do that. So if I did wanna do weighted pull-ups, I would personally probably use a resistance band and actually probably embrace my feet, if I could, down below on that brace bar. But again, I've kind of heard that Total Gym is against using resistance bands. I'm not sure why, but just bear that in mind. These machines are not really built for it. Now on that note, going to pull-ups, I actually would say this is kind of a semi-win for the fit, at least in my personal preference. I kind of feel like just jumping into pull-ups on this Total Gym fit is a lot easier, especially using my Angles 90s attachments. I always recommended using these. You know, you guys got to forgive me because I think the ISO bow is actually better, but I just found out about this product. It's also cheaper. I'll link this down below, their promo code. But now if I didn't have these, I actually probably would just throw these on there too. But I notice I still kind of have to use the ISO bow or something like this. Could use your Angle 90s attachments to do my pull-ups. I don't know why, it just feels a little bit more kind of, I get more range of motion. I just feel like it's more locked into my lats. If this was a little bit wider, I think that would kind of solve that problem. But what I don't like is when you drop these, I think these are called lat handles or lat bars, whatever. When you drop this down for pull-ups, it is nice. Yeah, you don't need the wing dip attachments, although it does come with some attachments you could put here. It just limits that range of motion to what you could do on a basic pull-up. So that's just one minor thing. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a con, but I do notice maybe it's just the tower height, or this thing's not so much in your face. I just find doing like my bodyweight pull-ups with some sort of handles up here is a little bit more preferable than this Total Gym GTS. At least that's kind of my initial thoughts. Then of course the Glideboard difference. I'd be remiss if I don't like cover this a little bit, but having this Glideboard adjust its subtle angles, it's really not so much. I first thought like, oh, I'm just gonna be using either totally flat, or sorry, totally in like the regular incline setting or totally horizontal. And what I find myself doing is finding like a little kind of mini sweet spot. So you're gonna see some clips of me like fine tuning things for like legs, especially with adjustable squat stand that really made this thing kind of more unique experience. I actually really almost prefer, it almost feels like a leg press in the gym, doing a leg press at kind of a moderate incline Glideboard setting and doing single leg or even double leg. And of course, having this kind of bracing bar in there as well. It's probably the closest thing that I found that has that kind of natural leg press kind of feeling to it. I would still say kind of double backing a little bit to legs in the squat stand, that when I do like the loaded weight bar presses, it kind of feels similar. It doesn't really feel like I'm getting that much out of it other than I can load a lot more weight. I still don't like the fact you don't have a nice eccentric load on your legs. That's the same problem you're gonna have on the fit as well. But having this adjustable Glideboard and this adjustable Glideboard and squat stand is making a huge difference. And I really like that single leg exercise you guys are seeing here. Of course though, for like your staples, you can't go wrong with like the basic incline. So that's just something that I think with the fit in this are totally fine. Like I said in the start of the video, the overall feel, the fact that you do feel like you're a lot more engaged, more higher off the ground, stuff just feels a bit harder. And I don't think I said in the initial review, but even for like the pull-ups, this is a much more weightier board. This definitely weighs more. So just doing a basic pull-up on equal inclines, this thing's gonna feel harder to move versus that thing. It feels a lot more easier, a little more of a slicker ride on that Total Gym Fit. Now on that note, just overall kind of distance and glide, you do have a little more glide distance with this. You can really feel that, especially if I'm doing like plyometric jumps. Plyometric jumps are amazing on here. This was always something to be watching out for because this Total Gym Fit can kind of like top out and get stuck at the top if you push too hard. The only thing I'm a little iffy on, which I gotta figure out, is because of these wheels, I find this thing is moving a little bit. That's why there's cinder blocks down there. I was bracing myself for those plyometric kind of jumps. But the glide board feel, distance, hard press offs feel excellent on this thing, as again it should for given the price and the model and the build. But the next thing would just be like your overall length. On the cable length is pretty much almost the same. The only issue though, as you guys can see though, is if this thing is extended, we'll get to these clips here in a second. If you move these things up and down, that's gonna kind of shorten your distance a little bit. So, but of course I did add my carabiners, my swivel, which adds that extra extension, but I have found myself wanting to kind of go back and adding some extra chains. So for whatever it's worth, probably because of the setting I got this at, I find that I actually want a little bit more extension. So I kind of wish there was a little more extension in this stock cable. Otherwise, it kind of feels pretty much the same as far as what you're getting out of the box between both machines. The whole theme of this is saying it's really hard to say what is the standout feature, what really sets this apart from this. It's a combination of things so far, and honestly, it's how things kind of blend together. And with that, that kind of leads me into this adjustment clamp setting. This is huge. I mean, this is one of the things that if you guys watch my channel for a period of time, I keep talking about line of action. This is fixed at the pulley. So if I'm doing things like an incline press, I would get myself kind of up on my legs. I would kind of stipple it higher. I would do a variety of things in the glide board, add more extension so that I could press maybe through different angles. That goes along with just extension and stuff like that. But with this, with the adjustable glide board and the fact that this is adjustable, this may drive you nuts because there's so many options and ways of doing it. You might be like, well, what's a certain way? And it might be able to slow down your workout. But I've already started to get into like a groove of what settings I kind of like and what feel best for me. And again, there's not one individual setting I'd say you kind of mess with that. But this definitely kind of tests your creativity and kind of like your art of sliding bench training, where you get to really mess around with certain angles, fine tune different exercises that really suit your particular needs. So the whole theme of this whole thing is, while the Total Gym and sliding bench training is the fact of versatility, and this just takes it up a bunch of notches in all the ways you can actually fine tune different exercises to suit your needs. Now those are all the major things. I probably could have made this video easily over an hour talking about subtle things. I didn't even get into the attachments specifically, but if I were to compare these two, the overall question would be like, what is better? I think one of you guys, a couple of you guys actually did ask me that. This thing is gonna spoil you. I have to say, yeah, this thing is objectively better. It's hard not to say that. That is not to say though, based on your individual needs and abilities and what you guys are looking for, price point, if you guys just want a smaller machine, smaller unit, this thing could be actually maybe better in your situation. But given the high price tag that you're paying for these things, this thing should be better than this. I think that goes without saying, guys. You're paying that much money, you should get your value. And I think what you're really getting out of this compared to this is all the things that make Total Gym or these sliding bench trainers great is the versatility, the effectiveness, the way you can kind of fine tune different exercises to suit your needs. This just takes it up, I would say, I don't know, times whatever, but it takes it up a bunch of notches in what you guys are capable of doing. I've yet to actually further even explore this and more I mess around with it, but all the features I covered so far, those are the biggest things that are kind of jumping out at me. But even to you guys, if you guys are hearing this, you might not think it's worth it, you might not think it's that much of a difference. I will say, as I always say, if someone came and just stole a bunch of my Total Gyms or stole a couple of these, if they stole this one tomorrow, my GTS, I would feel like I've just downgraded into this because it does feel like a substantial difference. But as I always say, no matter whatever you're using, you can kind of get used to it and you won't even know the difference until you get spoiled like I am and got a chance to play around with all these machines. So starting all over again, if it were me, again, if I had the money to drop at that point in time, this would be the machine I would get because it, again, covers all that bases. But the point is, guys, any sliding bench trainer is better than probably no sliding bench trainer in your home gym. Again, but that is my humble opinion. Interested to hear what you guys' thoughts, any questions you guys have, let me know. I'd be happy to answer them. I will see you on the next video.